Recording.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, this is Brandon from AAAS, and I have a new coworker with me, Leslie.
Hi, everyone.
We're calling in today from Washington, D.C. at the headquarters of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which helps run this Just Tech Eye competition. We'll hang out for a few more seconds before we get started to hopefully other people will join in. Just to let you know, if you have questions, please type them into the question box. It should appear on your side, the platform for the software, and we'll try to answer those at the end of the session once we've gotten through the main points of the presentation. And so we'll go from there. Oops, let me click on that. All right, today we're going to talk about how to make a promotional video. The previous webinars we discussed how to, a bit about the competition, and today we're talking about one of the major components of the application, which is the promotional video. And we'll discuss briefly about the competition again for those who weren't in the first webinar, and then we'll go into some of the aspects of the application and then more fully into the making of the video. Okay, so just a brief overview of the Just Tech Eye competition. It's an annual competition for entrepreneurs who are in the science and technology fields. This year we've opened it up to any sector. It used to be only 4 sectors, but this year really any, whether you're coming up with ideas for aerospace, environment, water, all those types of sectors are available should you like to apply to this competition. There's a basic requirements are that you're a JIST citizen, or a country, you're a citizen of a JIST country, excuse me, and that you're between the ages of 18 and 40 years old. There's a bit more requirements to be a part of the competition, and if you're interested in learning the full eligibility requirements, please go on to justnetwork.org and access the program announcement, which is in the Tech Eye pages for more information. Additionally, if you have any questions on whether you are eligible, go ahead and email us. Our email is at the end of this presentation, and feel free to ask us any questions about eligibility. There are a variety of different phases in the competition. The current phase we are in is in the application phase. This will end January 15th. At that time, we'll have the expert review phase, where experts will look over the applications and determine whether or not they and judge whether their ideas and then rank them accordingly. After that, of those top applications, roughly 100 of them, there will be a voting phase where applications will be voted on by the general public. It is a combination of the scores you received in the review phase and the number of votes that you received during the voting phase that determine whether you are a finalist. And then the final phase of the competition is the finals, which this year will happen in Silicon Valley at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And so we're really excited that it's going to be in Silicon Valley this year. It's a great opportunity to network with a lot of great entrepreneurs in that area. During that final period, you will receive intense training for 2 days about business models, and then you'll finally compete by doing a pitch in front of a panel of judges as well as an audience, and you'll pitch your idea that you put forth in this application. So those are kind of the rundown of the competition in general. If you have any questions about the competition and what I've gone over, feel free to ask us in that question box, or you can email us at any point. And just a reminder for those who might be needing to leave early and aren't able to watch the full webinar, we will record this webinar and post it on YouTube, so you'll be able to see the entirety of the webinar should you want.
Yeah.
Okay, So now we're going to talk a little bit about the application portion of this competition. So you have to either choose whether you're an idea stage or a startup stage. If you're curious or if you're not sure which one you're in, please send us an email or check out the program announcement. There are various kind of benchmarks that you can look at. But very briefly, an idea is so you might have some you see a problem and you see a potential for an idea to bridge that problem or bridge that gap that is that problem. Um, that is the idea stage. You might have looked a little bit into the research, how to implement this. You might have looked a little bit into the market potential for something like this, but you're really at a basic stage in the development of the idea. Whereas a startup, you've already got a team going, you've got some business plans, you might have already received funding, and we kind of limit the length that you can have a startup by. You can't have it be going for more than 3 years. That's in the program announcement. And if you have any questions, look at the program announcement, which is on justnetwork.org under Tech Eye, or send us an email. We're happy to respond to them. And then in terms, as I said, in terms of field or subject area, it can be from any. These are just some examples. So previous years, we've had healthcare, we've had agriculture, energy, and ICT. This year, we've opened it up, and basically, it'll be determined by you, the applicant, as to whether you are, what particular sector is included in this competition. So I really encourage you to, if you feel that your particular field or subject area is not mentioned, go ahead and apply. In the application itself, there's a field where you can click Other, and then you can fill in what you feel your subject area fits, or your idea fits under in terms of subject area. So don't be afraid to apply if you feel like this doesn't look like something you would qualify for, or if you've looked at past finalists and you say that you don't have an idea in that field, by all means apply, because this year we've really opened it up to anybody to apply in terms of your subject area.
And I'll just add to, the application will only allow you to select one field. So if you have an idea that maybe encompasses a few different fields, try and pick the one that you think is most addressed by your solution. We will review the applications, and if we think that you might have misidentified, or your solution is more, towards agriculture and you've put it in health, that's something that we might contact you about and say, we might change you to the health field. And that's just for the best consideration of your idea. It's only to benefit you, so that the expert panelists that review the applications will have a better idea of the solution.
All right, moving on to the application specific, there are 3 major parts of the application that you need to be concerned about. There's additional questions that you have to answer, but these are the primary things that you have to spend the most amount of time on. And it's really not too much time, in my opinion. So first, you have a short summary that has to be 100 words, that can be no longer than 100 words, and it must be written in English. The idea behind this is that if you make it on to the semifinals and your idea is being voted on, this is a thing that will show up underneath your video. So kind of make it short to the point, explain exactly what your idea is, so that someone who might not know anything about healthcare or might not know anything about the ICT, they can clearly read what your idea is and understand it, and therefore be encouraged to vote for the idea if they so choose. The second part is the executive summary. This must be no more than 750 words, and again, it must be written in English. This is a bit more technical, where you should outline exactly the science and the merit behind the idea. On this slide, you can see there are 3 main areas that you might want to consider. One is significance and relevance, one is scientific and technical merit, and one is commercial potential. These are all explained a bit more in depth in the program announcement, and if you have any questions about that, either see the program announcement, which again is on justnetwork.org under Tech Eye, or send us an email. We're happy to send you all the different kind of ideas or suggestions to consider when considering the why, the who, or excuse me, the why, the how, and the who when you put together your executive summary. And finally, what we're going to talk a bit more about today is the 90-second promotional video. Again, it must be in English or have English subtitles provided in it. Think of this as kind of a commercial for your idea. Again, if you make it onto the semifinals, this video will be featured when you for the voting portion. So people, the general public, will see it. So you need to kind of think in terms of how can I easily explain my idea so that someone who doesn't have a good understanding of this particular topic will be interested in that idea and will vote for it. And we'll go into further explanation on how to make a good video in the following slides. Okay. Again, feel free to ask questions. We haven't had any questions asked yet, so I'm just keeping an eye on it. But if you have any questions, please type in a question and we'll try to answer it. So first of all, a lot of questions we get coming in by email is how do I make a promotional video? And so we're going to go over some of the ideas behind it. First of all, you don't have to be a great videographer to put together this video. You can just use basic tools that you have available. You can use your laptop. You can use a webcam through your laptop or on a PC. You can use your cell phone camera to record this. You can just use a regular camera to record this. Or if you have a video camera, by all means use a video camera. But please take advantage of the technology you have around you. You do not need an elaborate studio to put together this video. Really, we're just concerned with you talking about your idea and how it works and why it's important. And we'll go over some of the aspects of what to cover in the video. And we're going to show you some examples from previous finalists so you get an idea of exactly what is a good video or what is a potential video. Some of the software we advise you to use or to look at, first of all, Powtoons is a software that you can use on the internet. It costs some money, so keep that in mind. It used to be free, but unfortunately they've started charging. But there are also some free software as well. So I encourage you to look around and find what's available in terms of software. Powtoons actually, you could create animations, so you didn't even have to appear on the screen. And it was a great tool, and there's probably other tools out there that are free. Another option, again, it's a similar option, is PowerPoint. You can always put together a video using PowerPoint. You just put together the presentation, and PowerPoint allows you to record a video, and you can do voiceover for that video as well. So it's an easy tool. If you have any questions, especially about PowerPoint, last year we were able to help out a bunch of finalists in putting together their presentation. And so we're happy to do that again this year. If you have any questions, by all means. Another one I'm going to let Leslie speak about because I'm not familiar with, but she can go.
Yeah, so the other option is Ice Cream, which is a free software program. And I think there are a few other free options, but basically it's a screen recorder application. So this would be particularly useful if your idea or your product is an application, software program, or something that you want to demonstrate how to use on a computer. You could record just a short tidbit of, the mouse clicking and opening and what the application looks like. And there are a few other options, but Ice Cream seems to be kind of the most well-reviewed and used. But there are a few other free options.
All right, so the video basics behind it is a maximum of 90 seconds. I cannot stress this enough. The reviewers who will review your idea or review your application, they're required to look at 90 seconds of the video. So you might have the greatest idea, but if in 90 seconds you're not able to get to that idea and your video goes on for 5 minutes, the reviewer will not be able to see that idea because they are only required to view 90 seconds. These are people who have a lot of applications to go through, so you need to make a count in that 90 seconds. If you have any questions about or need help cutting down your video, please send us an email. We're more than happy to help out in cutting it down. But I cannot stress, this is very important, that 90 seconds is key. You need to have it down to that 90 seconds because the problem is if you don't, we might actually cut it, and you don't know what that's going to result in. In the end, we might just say 90 seconds, done, and cut it at that point, because that's what we need to do in terms of giving that information to the judges. A second thing is it must be in English or have English subtitles. If English is not your native language and you have, or you're not feeling comfortable in speaking English, first option you can do is have someone else on your team or a friend or family member voice over for you during the video. That's happened in the past. It's not a problem. The applicant themselves do not have to have their voice in the video. So I highly recommend that option. Another option is to speak in your native language but use English subtitles. That is perfectly fine. So even if it's not in English, if it's in your native language, by all means, just subtitle it and your video is good to go. A third aspect is the intellectual property guidelines. For this, I go and check the program announcement to make sure you understand what all the aspects of the intellectual property guidelines that are in the program announcement, so that you're not violating any of the rules. There's no specific format that you need to follow, and you'll see when we show you some examples exactly that they didn't always follow a single format. Really, it depends upon your style and your idea, actually, in terms of how you present your video and your idea. What the judges and reviewers are going to be looking for is your video engaging? Are you explaining what you're doing? Am I feeling compelled when you're explaining your idea to do it, to fund it, even though I don't have any money to fund it, but there are people who will have money to fund it, and so you need to get those people interested in the idea. And this goes on to the next. Think about the audience that you're going after. For the voting portion, you're going to be going after people who have, again, no understanding of certain aspects of healthcare, or no certain understanding of environment. Maybe there is a healthcare issue that they're not aware of. And if you skip over the problem and go immediately to the solution, and we'll discuss this further in later slides, you might lose them. So be understanding that you're talking to a wide audience. And even if they're investors who you're talking to, they might not have expertise in a particular field, but they might still be interested in funding your idea. So it's important to understand you're talking to a wide audience. And the other thing you need to think about is the market potential behind the idea. And this is, again, key for people. It's all, I mean, it brings in the two aspects that I just spoke of before, which is if someone understands that there is a potential out there for this idea to go forward, they're going to be engaged in it. And if you're explaining the potential, that is going to, even if it's a broad audience, they're going to be interested in the idea and the product. So those are three aspects that I would keep in mind when putting together your video.
Yeah, and just a couple of quick tips before I forget them, but the idea behind the 90-second format is really that it's a pitch. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to be kind of on ad hoc situations where you meet a potential investor and you have to be able to sell your product. You have to be able to sell your idea really quickly and concisely, and drill home on what the market potential is and what your solution is. So that's the idea between the 90 seconds. It shouldn't go on past that, obviously, for the eligibility requirements, but beyond that point is kind of out of a normal time limit as when you're engaging in public with potential investors. And then the second tip I would give about the English language is, as Brendan mentioned, it doesn't have to be you on camera. It can be a member of your team or just a family member or somebody like that. I would say because of the length, it's probably best to only have one person on screen for the movie or for the video, just to focus the idea. But that's also something that you could work out. But you probably wouldn't want all the members of your team talking at once in this video.
Okay. If you have any problems, I just got a question: is the webinar finished? If you can't hear us, I'll send us I'll send a message to make sure that you can hear us. Although I've been confirmed that we can be seen, so hopefully you can hear us as well. Now let's go on to the next. Oops, I've got to click back a few. So here's the video structure that we recommend. And it's actually very similar to what I would suggest for your executive summary as well. So you have an introduction where you tell us a little bit about your idea and yourself. Don't spend too much time going into background. You should get right to the point. This shouldn't be a big part of your video. Next is the problem. This is, I think, of the four, one of the things that needs to take prominence. Tell us a little bit about the idea. What is the issue that needs to be solved? And so I'd spend a little bit more time on this, discussing and making it clear to your audience. Oh, good. We get I can hear and see. That's good. I'm glad to see that. But make sure that that your audience might be broad, and so they might not know what particular issues are affecting the healthcare system. And so by all means, explain the idea and why, or excuse me, the problem and why your idea might solve that problem. And again, this moves into the second thing. This is the other aspect that I would say should take up the majority of your video, which is tell us about your idea. Tell us how your idea solves the problem. And so these two aspects, the problem and your solution, should take up the majority of the video. And then finally, close. Give us a good note to leave on. Make us remember you. This is, again, this is sort of like the introduction. You need a powerful punch at the beginning with your introduction, a powerful punch with the close, but the majority of your video should be focused on the problem and the solution that you have through your idea and your startup.
And I guess for the solution part, the only thing I'll recommend too is, especially for the startup phase, can be nice to have a prototype on camera. That's just something that, catch the eyes and people can actually understand how you're using something, but it's absolutely not a requirement. So if you're in the idea phase, or if your startup doesn't really have a physical prototype, it's not something that you necessarily have to have. It's just, it could be useful.
Sorry, I'm just responding. I'm going to send this out, so hopefully everybody can, if anybody has any problems with the webinar, you'll all let us know. This is also recorded in case you joined us late, and I'll mention that, and it will be posted on YouTube. So if you want to watch this from the beginning, if you're arriving late, by all means, go on YouTube and view the recording, and we'll send you a link if you have any questions about that. All right, so before we move on to our tips, we wanted to show you some examples. So let me pull up an example of a previous finalist. So bear with us as we go to it. Okay, so this is a previous finalist from 2014, and you'll get to see his video, and we'll talk about it afterwards.
In South Africa alone, shack fires account for more than a quarter of all fires and take more lives than all others combined. Between the years 2000 and 2010, more than 240,000 people were displaced, and just under 70,000 shacks were destroyed. For people already living at the margin, the loss of property has dire financial effects and further entrenches cycles of poverty. Shack fires pose a serious development challenge, one that can be prevented with fast detection and quick action. This is currently unavailable. Khusela aims to change this. Our solution uses innovative yet simple technology in an integrated early warning system. We use low-cost in-shack heat detectors, which trigger an in-shack alarm, allowing users to act quickly when putting out a fire. These heat detectors communicate with one another, so that in the event of a fire, the whole community is alerted to the danger and able to respond effectively. As a third level of protection, users can use the most basic cell phone to send accurate locational information to the nearest fire department at the push of a button. Simultaneously, we send an SMS warning to all our users in the affected community. Join us in making millions of homes around the world a safer place to live.
Okay, I'm going to pause that real quick, and we can leave it on this screen. But I just wanted to go over quickly that this is a great video. It's very professionally done. it's something to keep in mind when you're putting it together, but by no means does your idea or does your video have to follow this. We're going to go over some additional ones that will show you other ways you can put together. But the important part is to sort of introduce the idea, explain the problem, go over the solution, and then end with, in this case, it ended with the idea's name. So it just gives you an idea of an example of a very professionally made video that is a submission from 2014. Do you want to?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to move on to actually another one. Let's see, let's go to Tariq's. This was one from previous year. Let's see, is it going to show up? Okay, good, excellent. This is from 2014, or excuse me, 2015, and we want to show you another example. This one, again, perfectly acceptable, and is another example of a potential video that you could put together.
Are you confused how and when to take your medications? Are you worried if your father took his pills? Do you want help patients adhere to their medications? Many people live with chronic diseases and took medications for that. 12% of persons aged 65 years or older use more than 10 different medications. Unfortunately, 40 to 75% of older people do not adhere to their medications. 300,000 lives lost annually because of non-adherence. Also, it costs the United States upwards of $290 billion per year, and the EU 125 billion euros yearly. 30% of hospital admissions over age 65. Many solutions available in the market. They faces problems in capacity, size, loading the boxes. None has affordable device. We introduce our invention line as an innovative full automatic oral medication dispenser. Like the available automatic dispensers, it will dispense the dose automatically. Alert patient to take his med. Send messages to relatives. Also, it has unique features where it will hold up to 23 different medications with an adorable size as a microwave. Be easy to be loaded. Has affordable device that will be loaded automatically. We are looking to serve seniors 65 and older who lives in independent status. Elderly are more than 14% of the population of USA and EU countries in 2015. By 2050 it will be projected to more than 20%. We are looking to help elderly be more independent. Relatives updated about their patients. Help pharmacists in serving their patients in high quality.
Okay, so really quickly about that video, let me close out those videos and pull up the next one. Really quickly about that video, the thing you can notice is that first of all, that wasn't Tariq's voice. He does not sound like a machine. He had it so that the computer would generate the voice, and that's perfectly acceptable. Again, the applicant does not need to be speaking over the video, and you don't have to have a computer to make the voice. You can have a friend or relative or a teammate do the voiceover if you'd like. So that's one of the important things. Another thing I'd like to point out is that I think he used Powtoons to do this one. But any animation, as you can see, there's no actual video in that video. It's all animation, and so this is perfectly acceptable. The point gets across what the idea is, what the problem is, what the solution is, and so it's a great example of a video that I think really hits the mark in terms of getting the point across. So that's just an example of a more animated video.
Yeah, and I think the real strength of that video is that it really clearly defined the problem and also the market potential. So he actually had a little bit of data on the growth in the elderly population and how that had some potential to tap into. So I think it was very concise and very clear what the problem was and what his solution was.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the third one. I'm going to turn up the speaker really loud because Samson's video is a little bit quiet, but this gives you another example of a perfectly acceptable video that was put together by a finalist from 2015.
My name is Samson Tiago. I'm a student at Malawi Polytechnic. I'm in third year and I'm studying business information systems. I developed an accounting software because of the problem that exists in Malawi. Most of the SMEs do not use accounting technology to manage their businesses. As such, they do their business with little or no financial management expertise. So I thought of developing an accounting software that specifically targets them and meets their requirements so that they should be able to manage their business with at most expertise and proper financial management, because I understand that excellent financial management is the key factor to the sustainability and growth of a business. I am selling the software. I registered the business. Its name is Easy Solutions, and currently I have 9 customers. I have received a very welcome feedback from those who are using the software, that the software is really helping them to manage their businesses. Actually, the software also helps them to make the business running. You know, most of the SMEs just buy products without knowing how much profit they're going to make out of it. So this software, it has a sort of ability to help them know how much of a product they buy for them to make maximum profits. Thank you so much.
All right. Let me go ahead and put the monitor back up. Just one moment while it loads. So the thing I wanted to stress about Samson's, oops, my volume appeared. Sorry. The thing I wanted to stress about Samson's is, as you can see, it's just him recording a video of himself explaining the idea, his thoughts, the problem, how to solve it. It's very simple, and it's a perfectly acceptable video. And like we say, I mean, I can't stress it enough. And when you email me, I'll say it again: is that you don't really have to have any background in videography. You don't need to have special equipment to do this video. It's very basic. All we're concerned about is having you or an animation explain the idea, explain the problem, what your solution to it is, so that we can understand it, and for a general audience as well. So Samson's was perfectly great. It was perfectly fine, and the reason why we showed you these three is they provide a very good idea of the varying degrees or the different types of videos you can put together. Really, you have a very professional one done by David from 2014. You have an animation one done by Tariq. Again, perfectly fine. And then you have Samson's, which is basically a video of him talking about his idea. And they're all great videos, and they all made it to the finals. So do not let the fact that you don't have a huge studio to put together a video hold you back from applying for this. It's very easy to put together a video. And if you, beyond this webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. I got a question about not being able to see the webinar or the sound cutting out. We'll post, I'll say this again, we'll post a recording of this webinar. So if you missed out on anything, feel free to go on to YouTube once we post the link, and you can watch it all the way through, and hopefully that way you don't have any problems with your audio or anything like that. But,
and as Brendan mentioned, we're looking for content, not necessarily the quality of the video, the same for the expert panels. So while you want to make an impact and make it clear that you have something that has a ton of market potential or that's really unique and efficient, you don't have to do that by having fancy graphics or fancy video. The video is a requirement though. I've already seen a couple questions about it, but you can't just submit the executive summary and the short summary. You have to submit a video. And I've been screening some of the applications, and we'll keep doing that. But I've noticed a few that have just uploaded filler videos, and we will contact you if we see that. But you do have to have the video, and it's really important and a good practice as far as developing a pitch for even after Tech Eye when you go to meet potential investors.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so here's some tips and advice that we have put together. One is we want to express that you should be creative when you put together your video. We were just watching videos from the previous year, and there was one where that just it didn't have any voiceover, but it had a little cartoon explaining the idea, and it was interesting. It was creative, and you easily understood the idea behind it. And so it's those kind of things that are going to stick with you. So when a judge or viewer looks at that video, they're going to say, hey, I remember that idea based upon the video that they put together. So really be creative when you put this together. You're going to want to create a lasting impression, and creativity is the way to do it. Another aspect we stress is to be enthusiastic. If I see someone who's just talking about an idea and this is how it's going to solve the world problem, I'm not going to be very enthralled. I'm not going to want to vote for that person. But if I have someone who's passionately telling me about there's this issue and I have the solution, then I'm going to be interested in the idea, and I'll probably vote for that person when their video appears in the semifinal round. So we want to stress that be enthusiastic when you put together your video. Another thing is be concise. Now, we've kind of talked over the structure of the videos, and again, it's important to focus on what the problem is and what the solution is. And I cannot stress it enough that that needs to be the majority of what your video entails. And also, I say that you should think about where you're filming, and think about how you should be dressed, and think of how you'd want to present yourself to the world. Obviously, there's no dress code for the video, but like if you have a shirt with your logo on it for your startup company, by all means use it. If you want to be professional, if you think that that's the best way to do it, then you can wear a suit and tie. But by all means, you don't need to wear something particular. But just being mindful that the world is going to see you on these videos, and you want to present yourself in the way that you want to be received. Another important point about this is, and this strikes on the first thing, where think about where you're going to be filming. Choose a location that either is quiet, or you know that the sound is not going to be disrupted, the outside sound, that is. I can't tell you how many videos I reviewed last year when looking over the submissions that they were really great ideas, and it looked like the video was well done, but I couldn't hear what was being talked about because there was traffic in the background, or there was a lot of noise going on. So be mindful of that. Look over what you've done when you film these videos, and kind of keep in mind, like, can a person who is trying to understand what I'm saying and what I'm talking about understand me if there's noises or loud music around me? And that's another aspect I'd stress, especially if you're doing animation and you play music. You heard some music in Tariq's video, but it wasn't overly loud. You could still hear what was being said. But again, a lot of the videos I saw last year, sometimes they'd come in and they would have loud video, and you couldn't hear what was going on in the background as far as what was being talked about. So we would email them and ask them to change that, but just keep that in mind, that when you're putting together your video, that you should be mindful of, can a person hear this idea over the background noise that's going on?
Yeah, and also like visually, because the viewers are going to be watching a ton of these videos, anything in the video that might be distracting is something to avoid. So not just sound, but if there are people moving back and forth off screen,
Yeah.
or if the lighting's really dim and it's just somebody's squinting to try and see you in the video, that's going to distract them from the message that you're saying, and you only have 90 seconds to say that message. So just it doesn't have to be, again, a high quality video. It's just try and make sure that the person watching the video can really focus on you and what you have to say, and just avoid being in a space that has a lot of activity or possibly distraction.
All right. And so the last thing we wanted to let you know about before we move on to questions, and I see that we have some questions. Again, feel free to enter any questions that you have in that question box, or we'll follow up with us through email. So what are the next steps for you? First of all, we encourage you to apply. And I want to take a moment to say that in certain parts of the world, this is a time where they're going to go on vacation soon. And so I want to stress, take the last remaining few days before, if you're going on vacation, if you're in these parts of the world, to go ahead and apply, get it done. Remember, you can always edit any part of your application before the deadline. So what I'd encourage you to do is, even if you don't feel like you can put together the video, or your video is going to be very short, not professional, or not professional enough for yourself, go ahead, do it, post it, submit, And at any time between now and January 15th, the deadline, you can change that video or you can change your draft executive summary. So I really want to encourage you, get it done now, because I don't want you to wait until the week before January 15th to start your application process. And then, oh, something comes up and you forget about it. And then all of a sudden the deadline's passed and now you can't apply. So I really want to encourage you, go ahead, take initiative, put together, even if it's just a draft application, and submit that application. You can always edit it later at any time before the deadline. So apply, especially if you're in those parts of the world where you're about to go on vacation. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. techeye@justnetwork.org is an excellent way you can email us. We're happy to answer questions about videos or applications in general. And then we also encourage you to spread the word, to go onto Facebook, .com JustNet, and join the Just Network page. It'll have updates on any announcements regarding the competition, any changes that might happen. So I really encourage you to like that Facebook page and keep track of what's going on in terms of the competition.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. As Brandon mentioned, the top applications from phase 1 will get moved on to a global public vote. It's never too early to start networking to drum up support for that. So if you are forward thinking and very optimistic, use the Twitter handles and use Facebook to start directing your fans and your startup network or community locally towards those pages, so that if you do make it to semifinals, they know where to go to vote, and they know that this is something you're working on and that you're going to be asking for their support. So definitely start earlier than later on that.
Yeah, and I can't, that is a very important point. When it comes to the voting portion of the competition, if you already reached out to people to tell them about this competition and about the fact that you apply, they're going to know. They're going to go, oh yeah, that's right. That was that person that was talking about applying to that competition. And yeah, okay, I will vote for him. And so getting the word out early is always great. And really, it's important. And other thing I would stress is to reach out to other groups, potentially entrepreneurship groups in your community, and tell them about the competition. And they might be able to give you some support, maybe even technology to help produce your video if you need it. And so I highly advise you to go out and spread the word about the competition. We're going to have one more webinar at least. We might actually do an extra one depending on how things go. And that's going to happen Wednesday, January 6, 2016, again at 10 in the morning. And we're going to talk about just last minute tips on how to complete your proposal. That'll be roughly a little over a week before the deadline happens. And we will once again answer any questions regarding the application or about the competition at that time. If we have another another webinar in between now and then, or if we throw in another webinar at any other point, we'll let you know and we'll post it on the Just Network website, and hopefully send it out via email as well. So I'm going to leave this slide up so that you can write down any information in terms of the Just Network website or our email, so that you have that. But let's go ahead and get some questions. So it looks like there were some questions. Let me just pull out. Okay. So again, I'll say once more that if you missed any part of this webinar, if you came late, feel free to, we will post it on YouTube, and I can send you the link if you want to email me, or we'll post it onto justnetwork.org, and you'll be able to view it through that. So one of the questions we have is just in terms of the competition, and it says, I've got an idea and a startup. Is that okay? You can only apply an applicant can only apply once for either an idea or a startup. I'd look at what exactly the idea or the startup is. And if you have any questions, send me an email. Or I would go onto the program announcement and see where does your idea or startup fit to see if it's if it fits under one category or another. Again, ideas is something you have an idea, you're thinking about going forward with it, but you haven't really done too much research into it. that's an idea stage. A startup is if you have a team together, you might have received funding, you have potentially a prototype in the works and are have market research to show that this is a viable option. So really look at where you fit in that in those categories. And again, send us an email and we can probably answer that more fully for your particular case. Um, do we need a place, transaction, demo, team, market? So I think what you're trying to ask here is, are there any requirements in terms of what your idea or startup must look like? There actually is not. If you don't have a team together, then you're probably going to be then you are definitely going to be categorized as an idea. So if you and again, I said this just a moment ago, if you haven't done market research, that's fine. That would classify you as an idea. But if you have done market research and you have a team together, then you would be more on the startup idea, on the startup phase. So it all depends. You don't have to have anything in particular. Oh, and I asked to see a demo, so I'm assuming that a prototype. If you don't have a prototype, you're probably going to be in the idea stage. Versus the startup stage. But that being said, even if you're in a startup stage, if you have some mock-up of what the prototype looks like, that's probably appropriate enough. You don't have to have a fully functioning prototype, although that's kind of what often distinguishes the idea from the startup, is that if you have a prototype, that usually means that you're in the startup phase rather than the idea phase. Oh, I can't hear a word anymore. Again, I'll say that we're recording this webinar, and so you should be able to hear it. Make sure you should be able to hear it online, recorded on YouTube, and we can send you the link if you need that. Okay, another question. If my video is more than 90 seconds, is that acceptable? Well, as I kind of said at the beginning, 90 seconds is required. It cannot be over 90 seconds. You can submit a video that is over 90 seconds, but the problem is that the reviewers and judges will only view 90 seconds of that. So even if you have a great idea, if you don't get to it in that first 90 seconds, then the reviewer or the judge is not going to be able to see that. Additionally, we're going to have to cut those videos down, and if we cut them, then we can't ensure that it's going to come off as exactly the video you want in that 90 seconds. It might be just the intro and nothing more. It won't talk about the problems or the solutions that you have proposed. So I really stress 90 seconds is required, no more than 90 seconds, I should say, is a requirement of the video.
I think it's also good practice, so it is definitely a requirement, but also if you're going over 90 seconds, then you definitely risk losing your audience. And like we stressed earlier, it should be concise. You should get to the point of what the problem is and what the solution is. In 90 seconds, all the videos we watched today were under 90 seconds. All the finance videos, of course, under 90 seconds. Some were as few as under a minute, and they got the idea across in that time. And because the reviewers are watching so many videos, it's really important to keep their focus for that 90 seconds, and that's it.
Okay, so let's move on to, let me just get rid of some of the questions that we've already answered. Are we supposed to submit a video on the idea for the competition? Yes, the video should the video should cover what your idea or your startup is. That's what you need to talk about. You need to talk about the problem that your idea is looking at, and then how your idea solves that problem. So you should be focusing not on talking about just yourself in general, but about the idea behind what your application is. Let me see. Which one has more chances, an idea or a startup? That's actually a really good question. Because the issue is, or not an issue, but when we go onto the finals, there is an equal proportion of ideas and startups that go onto the finals. So last year we had 30 finalists, and 15 of them were on the idea stage, and 15 of them were the startup stage. And so there's no one one is better than the other, or one is going to be judged better than the other. They'll actually all, there's an equal proportion for both idea and startup phase. So don't worry about that. Okay. Sorry. We have a question about living in a particular area that is not in a JIST country. So the requirements are that you are a citizen of a JIST eligible country. You can be currently living in another country, provided that you are not a permanent resident of that non-JIST country, or that you don't hold dual citizenship with that country. So if you're on a student visa studying in the US, for example, but you're from a JIST country, you're eligible to apply. That is not an issue. So keep that in mind. Okay. Towards the competition. Where you're coming from affects, so this is a follow-up question actually from the question that was asked before, which is if you're living in a different country, not permanently and not a dual citizen of that non-eligible country, then will that impact your possibility of going on to the finals? That will not impact it. What we measure it against is whether you are a citizen of a JIST network, or excuse me, a JIST eligible country. And there are 135. If you need to know what countries are in that list, go to gistnetwork.org, and there's a list on that website. But if you're living for temporary reasons in another country that's not a JIST country, that is perfectly fine, as long, again, as you're not a dual citizen and you're not a permanent resident of that non-JIST country. Alrighty. I have a great idea. I have a great idea about my startup, but where can I get support for my startup? Financial and technical. Well, you can apply to this program or this competition. In the end, we're scheduled to give out seed prize funding for your for the finalists to win awards at the end of this competition. So I highly suggest applying for the competition. If you make it to the finals, then there's a chance that you might go away with some funding. Additionally, if you make it to the finals, there will be networking opportunities at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, especially now since it's in Silicon Valley. So, excuse me. So there is a potential that you might be able to meet investors and potentially get funding that way. Also, when you become a finalist, you're able to interact with mentors that are involved in the finals as well, and they will be able to connect you through their networks with potential funding opportunities as well. And additionally, we here at AAAS, working on the Tech Eye competition, are always looking for possible opportunities for funding for future, or for former, I should say, Tech Eye alumni. And so we're always sending them messages about potential competitions, potential funding opportunities. So we really try to find ways beyond not just the competition to get you funding to help you go forward in your ideas.
Yeah, and I'll add to, going back to spreading the word, if you're looking for support locally, it's a great idea to start contacting your network, maybe your university friends or your university mentors or professors or anybody in the business community that you're working with now. Let them know that you are interested in applying to this competition. Use our social media accounts, send them the program announcement, just send them information, and hopefully, somebody reaches back to you and says that they want to help, maybe publish the video, or if they want to offer some advice, or even that they're prepared to vote for you if you make it to semifinals. So definitely spread the word now, and then by all means use it as a tool to get local support and local expertise.
Right. All right. Our question queue is empty right now, so if you have a question, go ahead and submit it. We'll wait another minute to see if any additional ones come in. Just to recap, again, the applications opened last week. The period goes until January 15th. Again, I stress apply early, even if it's a draft application. You can always go in and modify it up until, even after you submit it, up until the deadline of January 15th. I'll plug again that we'll have another webinar on the 6th of January. At that time, we'll discuss last minute things of how to complete your application. And we'll also go over any questions that you have about the competition. I guess one thing I'd like to say as well, we mentioned this in the first webinar, but while the dates have been set for the application phase and the review phase actually too, the voting period as well as the finals, the timeline has not been set for that. So keep tuned to justnetwork.org for any updates on those time frames. So it looks like we got a couple of questions. Does it have to be something that helps people? Does it have to be social? Oh, I'm trying to think of some examples from last year. It doesn't really, it can be really any, cover any sector or kind of idea. I'm trying to think. There's often a lot of ideas that help people, but I'll give you an example. One of our finalists from last year who won some prizes came up with an agricultural idea of how to prevent a certain agricultural product from being infested with pests. So, well, I mean, that helps people, but the idea behind it is mainly focused on agriculture and preserving crops. Another one we had is we've had app developers. Again, that helps people, but it's really it's more focused on terms of the technological aspect rather than a social aspect in the idea behind it. Supposedly got an award for my idea. Is it technically feasible, but is investor willing to invest with emerging economies like Tajikistan? Well, I mean, I think you'd be surprised. The question is, will an investor be interested in investing in an emerging economy like Tajikistan? Well, I think that's the great thing about this competition is it's really focused on promoting you all who live in these just countries, who are sometimes emerging economies, sometimes are more developed economies as well. But that you get promoted to the stage in Silicon Valley to talk about your idea. You're showcased in the finals. And I think what's great about that is that, yeah, you might think, oh, me in Tajikistan might not get investors interested. But when you're there in front of the investor talking about your idea and the investor sees the possibility that there's a market there, that there's a potential that they could get a return on their investment, they're going to go for it. So I wouldn't let anything hold you back in terms of applying for this program. And I think that's the great thing about this program. So, an example from last year's ticket, yes. An example from 2014, one of our participants used the example of an example from 2014 where the idea was bus ticket Zambia. So I'll just quickly go over that, and it's a great idea. It recently got funding, I think on the order of, I'm trying to remember, I think it was close to $500,000 in funding from two different kind of investment firms. And the idea behind Bus Ticket Zambia was really to provide a mobile way for people, or an online mobile as well, way for people in Zambia to buy inner-city bus tickets, and to really make it convenient for them. And they recently received, like I said, a large sum of money in investment, and they were a finalist from the 2014 Tech Guy competition. So it's a really great example of someone not just getting funding from the competition, but getting funding after the competition. All right, another question we have is, if we manage to get into the finals, will we have to travel with our own expenses, or will you guys bring in investors to our country Okay, let me explain. I'll clarify that. So the question is exactly regarding if you make it onto the finals. So what happens when you make it to the finals? And this is a good thing to go over. We discussed this in the first webinar, but it's a good thing to reiterate, is that you will then go to the finals, which this year are in Silicon Valley. All your expenses will be paid in terms of flying you in and your food cost for eating and incidentals as you travel. The only thing you have to worry about paying for is potentially souvenirs, really. But all that is paid for. You will then go in front of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit during the finals and pitch your idea. And it's at that time that investors will be able to meet with you and discuss your idea. So it's really not about we're paying for investors to fly to your country. It's about bringing you to where the investors are. And again, that's paid for in terms of your flight, in terms of your food to get to the Global Entrepreneurship Summit should you become a finalist. So don't let that hold you back. This is an opportunity for you to come to the investors. Oh, no, don't worry about, again, so let's see, what else do we have? My idea is about contributing to climate, and now everybody's talking about climate change. Does that give me an extra advantage? So you're talking, so it sounds like your idea, the question is about an idea concerning the environment or climate, and is that help you in the application period? Well, I think it's good that you're on top of something that is really important and is being discussed now. I think that's an excellent thing, and I certainly think that that will make it easy, especially in the voting portion of the competition. But when we do the review for the expert review during that review period, we try to make a little bit of balance in terms of where the ideas, what sectors are covered in those ideas, or in the ideas in the startups. So I wouldn't say it would necessarily give you a complete advantage, and also your idea has to have scientific and technical merit in order to go forward. But I definitely think it helps that you're working on an idea that is currently being discussed, and especially in terms of the voting portion, it will help a lot as well. People will be probably more willing to vote for it, but by no means does it guarantee you anything in terms of making it onto the finals.
And so much of it comes down to how you sell your idea. So just because you have an idea that's maybe really topical and being discussed a lot, if you don't sell it or you don't offer a very unique solution, or you've drilled down to a really important or a really unique problem, then that might not actually give you an advantage. But if you have a unique solution to something, that's what really matters. So whether it's topical, that could help with voting and it could help with promoting the idea, but you really still have to drill down on what your solution is.
Hey, so we have a couple more questions and then we'll have to wrap it up because we're a little over right now. But okay, so will it include, the question is, will the finals in terms of traveling, I think, include the entire team, or will it be a limited number of team members? Unfortunately, we don't have the funding to bring all the members of the team to the event for the finals. In terms of when you're applying as a team, and I would highly suggest you go to the program announcement where we cover the aspect of teams and how that all works in a bit more depth than I'll explain here. But in terms of teams, you have to have one person as the applicant, and that applicant will then represent the team should the idea or startup make it onto the finals. So we do not, in the end, pay for the entire team to come, and it's just because of funding constraints as well as to be in fairness for other participants who might be just the only person on that idea or startup. So it's only the applicant themselves that will be able to go on to the finals. Will there be accommodations provided at the finals? Yep, we will be having hotel arrangements for that, so don't worry about that. They'll be taken care of along with your flight to travel for the finals. Should you make it to the finals? All right. See if we can finish this off. My project is in the development stage and not complete yet. What category do I submit in? I have self-funded the part of the project and hope to debut shortly. It sounds like you might be in the in the idea phase at this point in time. Again, if you have questions, I'd send me an email, or go ahead and send us an email at the techeye@justnetwork.org, and we can go over your particular case. Also look at the program announcement where the exact kind of the categories are kind of laid out a bit clearer than we've gone over so far. But it sounds like if you are in the development stage, you're more into the idea. If you have a prototype, then you're probably more on the startup phase. And also, in terms of your team, is there a team already developed, or are you just a single person or a couple people, and you've yet to solidify who is your team and what positions they fall under? Do I still qualify if my project starts when the GIST event starts? Yeah, so the thing is that if you're in the idea stage and maybe by the time we reach the finals, you'll be in the startup phase, that's fine. Go ahead and apply as an idea stage. That's not an issue. And we understand you're entrepreneurs. If you're paying attention, so you're going to be constantly developing these ideas. And so by all means, continue developing your ideas. Don't be concerned that, well, you're not to this point in your development to apply now. And if you're not at the stage of a startup, go ahead and apply at the idea stage. It's perfectly fine. And we completely understand. As we get closer to the finals, the finalists who end up going have already started to work farther along on their projects, and that's perfectly acceptable. Okay. All right. When is the approximate date for the finals visit to Silicon? Unfortunately, we haven't been given a date or really a range quite yet on where or when the finals will be. We're assuming it'll probably be somewhere towards the second half of the year, if that gives you any idea. But in all honesty, we don't know the exact date or even the month yet. So based on the way the competition is structured, it's likely going to be happening in the second half of the year. But hopefully we'll have further information as the competition progresses, and hopefully maybe even before the application phase ends on what the exact date is for the finals. And when we do have that information, believe me, we'll send that out. I would say pay attention to the justnetwork.org website, as well as the Facebook site and their Twitter account, because any announcement in terms of the timing for the finals will be announced on that website or on that Facebook or Twitter feed. And that's probably where you'll find the most up-to-date information on that particular aspect. All right, we have one more question. I'm not an engineer and I have no science background. Is that a disadvantage? No, in fact, we've had people who are not scientists. We also had people who are scientists, but that doesn't disadvantage you in one way or the other. The important thing is that your idea fits inside kind of the competition guidelines, which is in sort of a science and technology field. So maybe you're a developer of an app, or maybe you're a developer of a software program. That still fits within the competition guidelines, but you might not be a scientist in that respect, because you didn't go to university and you don't have a PhD. But that doesn't mean that you won't fit inside the competition. So by all means, don't feel that it's a disadvantage. In fact, we were just watching a video from 2015 finalists that we didn't show on today, but that he mentions at the beginning of the video that he's not an engineer and he's not a scientist, but he developed something that is very important to the science and technological fields, and so that's why he made it onto the finals. So by all means, don't let that hold you back. All right. We have gone 9 minutes over, but thanks for all the questions. Thanks for attending the webinar. Again, we'll have another one January 6th in the new year 2016 at 10 a.m. at the same time as this one. If you have any questions, again, send us an email. We're happy to respond. And again, if you missed any portion of this webinar, we'll be posting it online on YouTube, and it should be showing up on the justnetwork.org site, as well as if you want to send us an email, we can send you a link to that posting. So from all of us here in Washington, have a good day. All right, bye.